Hallo zusammen. Könnt ihr mich hören? Can you hear me clearly? Give me some feedback in the chat maybe. Leslie, hi, nice to meet you. And we have a couple of fellow attendees. Pünktlich 6 Uhr, so we start on time. Anyone who comes late will miss out on the most important information, which is always at the very beginning. Yeah, nice to meet you all. Thank you for making it. And let's see what I can do for you today. And the topic today is clearly how to hack your B1 exam. I will give you a short run through what I do also at Smarter German, and I have a full course dedicated to this. So today it will be an overview, and if you do follow these things that I introduce you to, you will have a better result of your B1 exam, and maybe also of other exams. Yeah, let's get started, and thank you for the feedback that you can hear me. So I share my screen again. You can type any questions or issues in the chat. I see that somewhere on my mobile with a bit of luck. But let's see. Okay, here we go. Good. You saw the video already, that we don't have to watch this. So I'm not sure whether we need 45 minutes, but it's better to be safe than sorry. And at the end, we will have a Q&A. Could be 15 minutes, could be 20 or 10, depending on how many questions you have. And let me start by just running you through a couple of formalities, I call this, but the outer similarities and differences between the exams that are there. And there is 4 relevant types of B1 exams. There is other types the higher you get in the levels, yeah, but I'm not interested in those who want to study, at least not at this point. B1 is the first really relevant exam level, and that's why this masterclass focuses on that. I've sorted them by popularity. Popularity means rather like which ones are known, and the first one is definitely the Goethe Institute. Yeah, Goethe is just like a brand. Everybody knows Goethe. They are represented in many, many countries, like 90 countries, and have also lots of partners at universities. Yet their competitor TELC, for example, they have up to 3,000 test centers worldwide, which is a lot more, but nobody really knows them. Yeah. Then there is the ÖSD, which is the Austrian Sprachdiplom, language diploma, which is the Austrian Institute. And as the name gives it away, it's from the Austrian, well, from Austria. It's actually not even Austrian government. It is a company, kind of some sort of limited. And they are also represented in up to 200, or they have up to 200 test centers worldwide. That's quite a lot. So if you can find an appointment with the Goethe or the TELC, that might be a good shot. And the last kind of exam is the DTZ. That's basically the exam for migrants in Germany. So if you go to what we call an integration course or something like that, a governmentally or a language course supported or funded by the government, then this is the exam you do, and it's a special exam. And as far as I know, it's mainly offered in Germany. Yeah. So the good news is they're all pretty similar. So in the end, it doesn't really matter what you do. They're all officially acknowledged because the government actually supports all of them. They all take roughly 3 hours. One might take 15 minutes more or less. That's not really relevant. And they all contain of the same parts. One has an extra part, which I will point out in a few minutes. Yeah, so lesen, hören, schreiben, sprechen is reading, listening, writing something, and oral exam, of course. and all of them want you to reach a score of 60%. With the DTZ that I just explained, it's a little bit different. Let me see whether I actually have that in this presentation. But I say a few words about that later on. The number of tasks, or the kind of tasks you have in these exams, and most language exams, is pretty simple. It's usually multiple choice. Yeah, in B1, it is very often just right or wrong, or is the person saying something in favor of something or against something. That requires a certain understanding of certain keywords. And then there is also like tasks where you have to find the right title for a paragraph or an ad for a situation, and therefore you just have to figure out what is the keyword that fits together. Yeah, very simple in principle, which is why I could create a whole course about hacking the exam. The differences are in when you actually have passed the full exam, and whether you can retake parts of the exam or the full exam. Yeah, and that should be clear to you. I'll get into this on the next slide. Then if you do the TELC is still one of those few exams that offers the Sprachbausteine. Sprachbausteine is language elements. I show you what that is. It's basically gap tests. Yeah, you have sentences and one word is missing. You have to figure out which word that is. And they give you 3 words to pick from, which is also kind of a multiple choice if you want. But then there is another one where you have to pick one from 15 and 5 are blind. So that makes it a bit more difficult. Yeah, it's one of the more difficult but also most intelligent exercises. The DTZ is a graded exam. That means you almost cannot fail it unless you really tank it. So if you have a certain amount of points, you get a 2 level, and if you surpass a certain level, you get B1. And that means you at least get something out of it. But of course, B1 is your aim, and they require you to pass 2 of 3 parts with B1, and 1 can be A2. Yeah, unless I'm mistaken, but that I think that was it, and that makes it actually quite doable. Yeah, and quite attractive, because you don't have to be an overperformer in order to get the B1 grade from that. Some exams want you to invest more time in writing, for example, and cut it off from the listening and the other way around. But these are minor issues. Unless you really struggle with writing, then maybe you should look for one of the exams that only has 30 minutes of writing. And I think that's the TELC exam. Yeah, but these details you can actually look up if you look at the sample exams. They differ in cost. I just put the cheapest and the most expensive exams here. This is just for the exam. It's not for any courses or preparation. Yeah, so 120 euro, you can just put a $sign in front of it. It's more or less the same. Or it's actually a lot less at the moment. So $100 up to $200 if you go to Goethe. Yeah. But I will talk about that later. The money, I know it's a delicate topic, but shouldn't necessarily be your concern, because these exams, if you take them, you usually have good reasons to do so, and you will need them for official purposes most of the time. And if you do it for fun, then $200 should also be okay. Yeah. And as I said, they are available in different countries, so it might be that you don't have a Goethe institution in your country, or in your place or near your place. Then you have to look for other opportunities. Very simple. And in these times, it might also be that there are simply not sufficient. There is not a sufficient amount of free exam spaces, especially if you come from the outside and haven't taken a class with that institution. So it is good to have a choice. Yeah. I often get asked, what's the simplest exam to take? And you might have already heard from what I've been saying that there is a couple of factors to consider. But from what I have recently researched again, I would always try to get into the DTZ, because you can really kind of have one part in which you don't perform that well. Yeah. But you can also, and I suggest that, download all four kinds of exams and just work through them a while before you actually have to take any exam or register for one, and see which one actually goes easiest for you. The Goethe has the advantage that it's fully modular. That means all four parts that you go through, if you fail one part, you only have to repeat that one part, not the whole exam, which could take a lot of pressure off your chest, and therefore is something I'd prefer to do. It's more expensive though, but yeah, that's something that really might make a difference. The ÖSD, the Austrians, it's the same as the Goethe. So if you have one around, they're a little bit cheaper, even depending on where you live, of course. Yeah, and the last is the TELC, because it has this gap tests in there. And in TELC, you can only either repeat the written part, which consists of reading, listening, Sprachbausteine, and writing, or the oral part. So if you fail one, the writing part, then you have to do all of these again. Yeah, but once you've passed the oral exam, you're through with that. Now, a few quick hacks. Yeah, I go into detail and I walk you through really individual exercises and the logic of these exercises in my B1 exam hacking course, which you can check on my homepage. But let me give you a little taste of this. The tips today here in this webinar, you will already, if you get them, you already have a huge advantage in your exam. Now take a look at this reading exercise. Of course, I shortened it. The texts in the exam are usually a lot longer, but I want to show you how to actually approach something like this. So a text is always a bit overwhelming because it's just like one big blob of text, and there's an occasional full stop here. That's nice. But I've highlighted a few words, and these words, well, first, these words are verbs, kommt, ist, gibt, an, ist, and so on, and negations. The verb actually tells you what's happening in most of the cases. Yeah. Unless you have the ist doesn't really say much. But let's say kommt. So you understand kommt. Someone is coming. So who is coming? And usually you look in front or behind the verb to see who it is that is doing it. So Yoshi is coming. So, okay, there's a guy, or I know it's a guy, but maybe for you, you don't know. So there's a person called Yoshi that is coming. And then you maybe understand Büro. So someone is coming to the office. You don't have to understand anything else here. Yoshi comes office. Very simple. And you see here there's a nicht. You highlighted this red. So he's not coming to the office. And that's the message. Whether you understand this or normalerweise is irrelevant. And you go through this sentence by sentence. And if you can, you kind of cover as much as you can. You look at one line or two lines at max so that your brain can actually focus on as little information as necessary. Here's another example. Ina, seine Tischnachbarin, ist keine Programmiererin. So there's someone who is a programmer, and kein is negative, so he's not a programmer. So Ina as a name is not a programmer. Sondern is also kind of negative word. There has to be a negation before if you see that. So if you work like that, and again, bear with me, this is just a 2-minute presentation of this task. I promise you, you will find the proper answers, because to this you have to actually find, is that correct or not? Yeah. And one task could be, or one question could be, Joshi is coming to the office today at 10 o'clock. And you have to then say right or wrong. And as you know, Joshi is coming to the office, that's true, but you read the nicht, so you know it's wrong. And this is what you do. The good news is, don't panic. You only need to really understand not even 50% of this text. The biggest mistake you can make is to try to understand every single word here. Yeah, there will be words that are far beyond your level, and that's on purpose. The idea is for you that you are able to pick out the information that matters, and that will be on your level. That is something that you can do. Yeah. So this is the first. Usually, in certain exams, reading is the first task. In others, the listening is the first task. Now, quick look at Sprachbausteine, because you might be confronted with this, maybe also in your German class. It is about gaps, so you have to identify the gap, and you can focus on the position. I'll give you 3 examples. You will find full sample exams in my course. So let's say you have this sentence here. Dort ich 3 Monate geblieben. There I 3 months stayed. Now you have to learn something about positioning in a sentence, and hopefully your German teacher has actually done that. Yeah, I do this in my courses, of course. And I can see that geblieben, I recognize bleiben here, and it's the past form, that's why it has a GE, is at the end. And it can only be at the end in 2 situations. If there is a word that I call pusher, yeah, for example, weil, because, which is not the case, or if there's another verb before it. And as I can not see another verb yet, it must be in the gap. So very likely this is a verb. And then you have 3 words to choose from. I didn't go that far to recreate that exercise, but maybe you can guess it. And you see, this is the past tense, geblieben. And you know, the past you built with 2 helper words. Yeah, and again, you have the choice. Maybe you have haben, sein, also bin, habe, kann as a choice, and then you have to pick the right one. And you know, bleiben requires bin, so this is how you solve it. It's a very intelligent and smart, beautiful exercise. It really tests your knowledge, and it tests your grammar skill in a way. Yeah, but it's also hard. The same here. You see, freue is on the 2nd position, so it's not a verb that we are missing. So looking forward to the next time. So what's missing is who is looking forward to the next time, and you will have a choice between maybe pronouns or names. And freue should tell you it can only be ich because it ends in e. And one last example. You see here muss is at the end, and I told you in the first example that means there must be a pusher in front of it or another verb, but there is no verb in the beginning usually, unless it's a question or an order. So this is weil. And all these things you learn hopefully in your German course. Yeah. This is beautiful training, and if you can avoid it in an exam, avoid it, because under pressure this is really quite a challenge. The good news is, if you have to take a TELC exam, this kind of exercise only counts for 10% of your overall score. So even if you completely fail here, you need to do a little bit better in all the other parts, but there's still a chance that you will pass the exam. Yeah. So that's the good news. And what that does is that it helps you not to panic. Because if you know, okay, even if that goes completely wrong, and usually you have a 30% chance to guess the right answer, you at least get a few points out of it. Yeah, take it easy. Listening is one of the most challenging parts. Yeah. And listening requires actually intelligent and thorough practice. And the time today is not enough to show you how to do this. I really urge you to look into my B1 exam hacking course. You can get this with no risk. Yeah, you have a 30-day money-back guarantee, and in those 30 days you will actually know whether it's good for you or not. And there's very few people who actually ask for their money back. Yeah, which is a good sign. I give you a rough outline. You need to have texts or sample exams that come with the audio transcription, with the text of what you listen to, because then you have a chance to teach your brain to hear the information it should hear. And with listening, it's the same as with writing, with reading. You don't have to understand every single word. So you have to learn to focus on the verbs, negations, and an occasional noun, because sometimes it's important what is given, what is cancelled, yeah, and who is doing something. So the details about things like endings or grammar per se is not really relevant. It's really getting rough information and puzzling that together in your brain. And that requires practice. And you can learn that. It takes some people a bit longer, other people are a bit faster. As I said, verbs and negations are always the key to most sentences. And if you do an A1 exam, for example, and then they will ask you about times and places and dates, which you can easily, that's something you sit down and you look it up in the internet. It takes you 2 hours to memorize these things. You have an appointment, you have to postpone that, or you say, I will come to the next seminar on that and that day. It's one task usually, so it's not that important to know the dates and times. Yeah, it's good if you do though. Yeah, so check out the B1 exam hacking course. You find it on smartergerman.com. Listening really, I want to let you know that it's totally normal to struggle with this task. Yeah, even though you might not do an exam, listening is something that takes a lot of practice. Your brain needs to literally, I hope I use that word right, create physical connections in your brain, new connections, and that takes time. It's like it took you years to grow to the size that you are now.